When Star Trek is mentioned, we think of iconic designs like the USS Enterprise. That is just one ship. Today, we're exploring the Excelsior-class. This was the backbone of Starfleet and the Federation for well over a century, making it one of the fleet's longest serving and most recognizable starship designs. Hello, I'm Captain Jack and welcome to the Hangar Bay. On this channel, we take a deep dive into the best starships, technology and more from your favourite sci-fi universes. Remember, for the latest videos, make sure to hit that subscribe button. If you're enjoying our videos here on the Hangar Bay, consider pressing that join button and becoming a member for our channel. You'll get earlier videos, as well as access to our Discord community and help us choose the next video. As always, let us know what you think of this ship in the comments below. Is this a Star Trek starship design you could see yourself commanding, or are you a fan of something else? The Excelsior-class was a new Federation starship design meant to revolutionize Starfleet with its state-of-the-art transwarp drive. This vessel was 511 meters long, 195 meters wide, and 87 meters tall, and had around 34 decks, which could accommodate a crew of 750 people. The Excelsior-class featured the standard Starfleet ship layout, a saucer section, a secondary engineering hull, and two nacelles. The saucer section was extremely circular in design and connected to the secondary hull with a very interesting neck section. However, the saucer section had a structure that extended from the main bridge to the rear of the saucer, connecting to two impulse engines. This structure also housed the impulse deflector crystal. On the underside of the saucer, the main element seen from the exterior is the ship's sensor platform, which has an almost star-like pattern. This neck section was weirdly ribbed, rather than sleek like other neck connections of other Federation starships. This ribbed neck would also have holes, which could fit smaller craft for cargo management. The deflector dish, as usual, located in the engineering section and almost embedded into the hull. This would continue to be a Starfleet practice in vessels such as the Sovereign-class, differentiating it from the outer deflector dishes of the Constitution-class and other ships of this era. The vessel's engineering section was long, almost tapering to the flat end of the rear. A shuttle bay could be seen from underneath, with large cargo bay doors which are usually open, giving the ship a weird look from the back. Just above this main shuttle bay, the navigation beacons can be seen. At the rear of this secondary hull was another shuttle bay, located at this flat rear section and protruding into its own structure at the top of this flat section. Located underneath this shuttle bay were the ship's plasma exhaust vents. This protrusion could also be seen out the nacelle section, with the nacelle pylons attaching to a structure which came out to the secondary hull. The pylons themselves would also be interesting. Instead of directly connecting to the nacelles at an angle, they would make an L shape, moving to the side and then up to connect to the nacelles. Tactical system-wise, the Excelsior was outfitted with Type 8 phaser emitters in 5 dual phaser bank emplacements on the forward section of the saucer, and 1 dual phaser bank emplacement at the aft of the saucer. Other phaser banks could be found near the neck section, at the port and starboard sides, and in placement on the structure connecting the ship's nacelles. As was standard, the ship was equipped with photon torpedoes, with 2 launchers below the neck section, above the main deflector dish, and aft launchers above the shuttle bay. Defense-wise, the ship did have shields. These shields seemed stronger than the refit Constitution-class, as they could withstand a direct photon torpedo strike without suffering any visible damage to the outer hull. As this class of ship would continue to be in service for the next 120 years, it would be given upgrades, such as new photon torpedoes and better shields, which would allow the vessel to compete with even the Defiant class, and be one of the main classes of ships to fight against Dominion forces. The USS Lakota, which had been overhauled and outfitted with quantum torpedoes, was able to go up against the USS Defiant. Not only would its capabilities change, but it would slightly change its design over the years as well, mostly with the saucer section rear structure and the shuttle bay at the rear of the ship, but the same Excelsior-class aspect of the vessel would remain. Internally, apart from a transwarp drive, which did prove to be a failure, the Excelsior was still technologically powerful. In the early 24th century, Excelsior-class vessels were equipped with dilithium recomposition and recrystallization technology to extend the lifespan of dilithium crystals used as power regulators for warp cores. The Excelsior-class also used micro-power relays in its warp core matrix compositor. Now, the bridge of Excelsior-class would start extremely open when the transwarp drive was still being tested, with only a central command chair and consoles around the bridge. This bridge would change when a conventional warp drive was fitted on the ship, with a new bridge module almost identical to the Enterprise refit, perhaps sharing the same bridge module and simply being switched out. In the 2290s, the Excelsior-class received its own refit, most notably with the USS Enterprise B. Even though this was the case, the standard non-refit configuration of the Excelsior-class remained in service well into the 24th century. This refit introduced a number of changes, notably with the nacelles, which had different bussard collectors from the default Excelsior. A weird addition was the fins on the nacelles. The saucer section came with 2 extra impulse engines attached to the rear of the saucer, presumably for either faster sublight impulse speeds or extra maneuverability when at sublight, and some extra protruding structures into the secondary hull of the ship. This extra shape gave the secondary hull a more pronounced look near the deflector dish, where parts of the hull protrude out. What purpose these served is not really known. As starships like the legendary Constitution-class began to show their age, the Federation looked to keep Starfleet in top form by commissioning a new era of starship design. This was envisioned with the Excelsior-class. The design was already under initial construction in the early 2280s at Starfleet's San Francisco fleet yards, which were orbiting Earth. The Excelsior was given the initial registry of NX 2000, but would eventually change to NCC 2000 when it was out of its prototype phase. The class prototype, the USS Excelsior, was the first to be equipped with an experimental transwarp drive, which Starfleet regarded as the Great Experiment. The hope was that the Excelsior would become the fastest starship in the Federation, and break the record for the fastest speed previously held by the USS Enterprise. By 2285, the Excelsior was preparing for trial runs, and was stationed at Space Dock 1 above Earth. Captain Lawrence H. Stiles had taken command, with former Enterprise Chief Engineer Montgomery Scott serving on the engineering team. Days before she would begin her trial runs, the Excelsior was called into duty when the crew of the Enterprise started to hijack their vessel. Captain Stiles responded by bringing the Excelsior online, confident he could pursue the Enterprise due to the new transwarp technology. While the Enterprise prepared for warp, Captain Stiles warned Kirk that the Excelsior would be able to catch him. However, what Stiles did not account for was that Scotty had sabotaged a transwarp computer, which left the Excelsior dead in space.
Aye, sir. The more they overthink the plumbing, the easier it is to stop up the drain.
This incident was a complete embarrassment for Captain Stiles and the Excelsior. The Starship spent the next 2 years in space dock. In 2287, newly promoted Captain Hikaru Sulu was assigned to command the refitted USS Excelsior. The Starship had spent more time in space dock before this, likely reworking the failed transport systems, if not completely removing them. Other modifications included a redesigned bridge module, and a significant modification to the aft portion of the saucer section, impulse drive, and cargo bay. Sulu would command the Excelsior on a 3-year mission before returning to Federation space in 2293, and becoming involved in the Klingon Praxis incident. The ship would assist the USS Enterprise A at the Battle of Khitomer against a cloaked bird of prey. Thankfully, both ships were successful, and the Klingons were defeated. The Excelsior would operate well into the 2300s, right up until 2320, when she was finally decommissioned. Decades later, the Starship would be preserved at the Federation Fleet Museum at Anthem Prime. One of the most iconic Excelsior-class starships would be the USS Enterprise B. While some would see the use of a failed experimental Excelsior-class as a controversial choice, Starfleet were confident in the economics of using the existing and otherwise still successful space frame. The USS Enterprise B, NCC 1701B, was officially commissioned in 2293. The starship lasted for many decades, becoming an essential starship in the legacy of the Enterprise. Eventually, it was succeeded by the Ambassador-class USS Enterprise C. With the success of the Excelsior-class as the USS Enterprise B and USS Excelsior, the starship design would be mass-produced by Starfleet, becoming one of the most common sights in Federation fleets. For example, it was common to see an Excelsior-class in various roles, from exploration to patrol duty to transport and courier runs. The design of the starship was also effective in combat. The class played pivotal roles in significant engagements such as the Battle of Wolf 359 and multiple major battles in the Dominion War. Due to the effectiveness of the design, many starships were stationed near the front lines of the conflict. An offshoot of the Excelsior-class was the Avenger-class, active in the 2380s. This starship design was visually similar to the Excelsior-class, apart from being more modern. The Excelsior-class would eventually be phased out of service. By the 25th century, the class had been succeeded by the Excelsior-II class. Multiple of these ships were in service to Starfleet, including the class prototype of the USS Excelsior, NCC 42037, which was sadly destroyed in 2401. It's safe to say the legacy of the Starship design would be well remembered in Federation history. The script for The Search for Spock described the Excelsior as a super starship, bigger, sleeker, the new queen of space, and this needed to be reflected in the design. One of the first designs was done by ILM's Nilo Rodis. It was an exciting design that almost combined the Miranda-class and the Rebirth-class into one, a saucer section of 2 nacelles and an underslung long flat secondary hull. Another one of these designs, which became a model in Eagle Moss's Starship line, is the highly flat design, which featured 2 nacelles but would morph into a design with 4 nacelles. The saucer section almost started to look like a CD player attached to a Klingon D7. Now these designs looked more equipped than the Enterprise, but did not make it look like the new Queen of Space that Excelsior described. However, it wasn't only the Excelsior's exterior that went through several iterations. As this concept art shows, the original idea of what the Excelsior bridge would look like, with a view screen surrounding a bridge, giving awe-inspiring views of space around the ship. Now the Enterprise B was designed by Bill George, John Eaves and Herman Zimmerman. The script already described it as an Excelsior-class, but the producers believed Excelsior had already been seen quite a bit, and so they wanted a new design. Mike Okuda would help John Eaves come up with aspects that would still keep the ship being an Excelsior, but make sense to alter it within the universe, to show it as a new ship, altering Bill George's design of the Excelsior into the Enterprise B. The protruding section of the secondary hull was implemented for a story reason, so that the Nexus energy ribbon could destroy a section of the ship while still leaving the ship primarily intact. Other changes that mostly kept the original Excelsior shape with the addition of the new impulse engines on the saucer, some fins added to the nacelle section, and some other differences to the nacelles. Now the Excelsior 2 class was created for Star Trek Picard Season 2 to bolster the Starfleet fleet of the 25th century. This followed fans' feedback about the one-ship fleet in the first season of the series. The ship was created by Doug Drexler and John Eaves, both famous Star Trek ship designers with careers that have gone very far in Star Trek. This would, like the Enterprise B, which John Eaves also adapted, retain the look of an elite class but modernise it for the 25th century. So that's our breakdown of the Excelsior-class starship in the Star Trek universe. What do you think of this starship design? Would you take this Federation ship out into the final frontier, or are you more of a fan of another design? Let us know in the comments. To continue the Star Trek adventures, hit that subscribe button and check out the playlist on screen to see our other Star Trek starship breakdowns here on the Hangar Bay. That's the end of this video. I've been Captain Jack in the Hangar Bay. Remember, if you're talking about science fiction, we want to hear about it.